Yo, what's up? This is Raquel, and today I'm going to be going in depth on one of my March reads. This is a true crime nonfiction book by Anne Rule called The Lust Killer. This book, this book is about a serial killer named Jerry BRUDOS, aka the Fetish Slayer, aka the High Heel Killer, aka the Lust Killer. I had never heard of this story before. And the amount of time and detail that Anne Rule put into writing this book, I mean, go read this book. If you want to know, I'm going to try to cover as much as possible, so this is a spoiler. But if you want to know, like, in-depth psychology behind it, like the real history of everything, go read this book. This book was a fast read. They have it on audio as well. This shit had me shook. Like, I've never really felt scared, I guess you could say, after reading some crazy shit. I don't know if it's because I'm older too, because I have not picked up a true crime book in years. Like, I don't know, years. So this shit had me looking at regular people on the street like, and you're about to find out why. So grab you something to drink, go grab you a sack, go grab you a snack, whatever your chill thing is, go grab that and sit down, because we're about to take a journey into the mind of a psychopath. Jerry BRUDOS was a man whose violent fantasies and crazy obsession with a simple, everyday high heel turned into a violent reality. And we're going to take a journey to try to see where and how he got there. Let's get right into it. So, Jerry BRUDOS was born Jerome Henry BRUDOS on January 31st, 1939 in Webster, South Dakota. This would make him an Aquarius sun, a Gemini moon, and a Capricorn rising. He was born to parents Marie Eileen Aldridge BRUDOS. She was in her mid-30s, and Henry Irvin BRUDOS, who was in his late 40s. Henry and Eileen, as she was known, had already had a son named, I'm going to call him Tom. He's called Larry in the book. Neither is his real name, but Jerry and Larry are too close together. So I'm going to, for the sake of my video, I'm going to call Larry Tom. Okay? Tom is Jerry's brother. So yes, back to the story. They had already had that son, Tom. He was born in 1936, making him 3 years older than Jerry. So being as that they had already had a son, they're starting off late in life having these kids. Eileen specifically was hoping and praying for a daughter. Of course, Henry was like, yeah, you know, a daughter would be cool. We already have Tom. But unfortunately for Eileen, when the doctor brought in the baby, they announced to her that he was a boy.
I didn't have a boy, I had a girl.
No. He was in fact a boy and not the girl that she was praying for. And it was that moment and that moment on the rest of Jerry's life that he would never know the love and affection of his mother. She got so turned off to him, she didn't want to have shit to do with him. He now just became a responsibility, an accident pretty much to her. Tom ended up being her golden child. She put all her love and affection into Tom. Parentheses, just like throughout life, Jerry did have a normal relationship with his brother and with his father. His father did not treat Jerry any different from Tom. And him and Larry, although Jerry would live in Tom's shadow for pretty much all his life, they had a normal bro relationship, in parentheses. So yeah, so she was upset. She could not stand Jerry from that moment on, and I think he kind of knew that. Eventually, later in life, he knew that, but I think even as a baby, he might have felt that. You know, never getting affection, never being held, only tending to your necessary needs. I can't imagine how that must have been for Jerry growing up. And I'm not trying to sympathize with a murderer, but let's all be real. Everybody starts off as an innocent little child. So there are times that I would be lying if I say I didn't. I really felt terrible for little baby Jerry. Grown man, psycho killer, Weskasi, grown man Jerry. Fuck that guy. Fuck that monster. But little baby innocent Jerry that didn't stand a chance, I feel sorry for little baby Jerry. Yes, I do. I'm not even going to lie. I do. I felt sorry for baby Jerry. Yes. As I would any child. And I would hope that you would do the same. But that's off the point. So being as Jerry wasn't really cared for in the sense, he was a lot of times left to his own devices. And at the age of 5 years old, he found himself playing in a junkyard where this would completely change the course of his whole life, because little 5-year-old Jerry found himself a pair of women's high heels. Not just any high heels. Black leather, open-toed, strappy high heels. Girls, you know which ones I'm talking about. Yes, them freakum heels. He found them. And boy, from that moment, he was enamored by these heels. He picked them heels up and was like, what is this? What is this? Because Eileen, she was a plain Jane conservative woman. She would never be caught dead in a pair of heels. Never. So Jerry wasn't around stuff like this. This was a complete new thing to him. And it stirred something in him that he had to have those shoes. He had to have them. He could not leave them there. They were not junk to him. He could not leave them there. So he tucked them little shoes up and ran as fast as his little 5-year-old legs can carry him all the way home. He went and threw them shoes on his bed, ran to his mama's dresser, pulled out some nylons, ran back to his room, shut the door, and was like, this is the moment. This is the moment that he was finally left alone with the shoes, and he was going to try them on. He put that little nylon stocking on. He put his little 5-year-old foot in these women's heels, and he stood up, and something instantly changed in him. He had a feeling of invincibility, I'm sure. He had that little hand on his hip. He was strutting up and down his bedroom, clickety-clacking, and loving every moment of it. He could not believe how his foot looked in them shoes. He could not believe the feeling that them shoes gave him. And he was in pure fantasy bliss when the all-seeing Eileen popped her head up in there. She saw her 5-year-old son clickety-clacking up and down his room in some women's high heels, and she lost her shit. She was like, what the hell are you doing, Jerry? Where did you get those? What? And he's like, 5, mind you. First time he's seeing these. To him, they're shoes. Shoes are an innocent, inanimate object that shouldn't be a big deal, right? But no, old Bobby Boucher's mama over there was like, them heels are the devil. Take them off your damn feet. You need to go take these back to wherever the hell you found them from, and don't you ever bring anything like that into my house. So Jerry, he's 5. He's sitting there like, what the hell just happened? I mean, what is so bad about these shoes? Like, he literally cannot process and understand why his mother had got upset to the level that she did. So the soil was sprinkling in his brain that the correlation between shoes and him could not exist. He had to keep this on the DL. So he's like, okay, yes, ma'am. I'll take these back immediately. She shuts the door because she trusted a little 5-year-old to listen to her and run all the way back to the junkyard and put these back right where they found them, because Eileen. So Jerry is like, I'm just going to hide these until later. So he does, in fact, not take the shoes back to the junkyard. He stashes them wherever he stashes his little yo-yos. He stashes it. And he's just living it up. For I don't know how many days he had those shoes. And when nobody was looking, he was strutting in them shoes. He was admiring himself. So he couldn't help it. There he goes on the catwalk, clickety-clacking. And here comes the all-seeing Eileen. Boy, she was pissed more than ever before, because she had already told Jerry to take those damn shoes back to the junkyard. So she grabs him up, I'm sure by his ear, drags him outside, takes those heels away from him, starts a fire in a barrel, throws them in there, and makes him watch them burn. And she's like, I told you to get rid of these shoes. And Jerry is devastated. He is devastated. The one thing that he found that made him happy, that made him feel some type of way, is now burning right before his very own eyeballs. So that little soil dropped a little seed, and he knew for sure nobody could know about his love for heels. And he knew that this high heel did something to him like a drug. It was a feeling that he will forever be chasing from that moment on. He could not get it off his mind, no matter how hard he tried. He could not get it off his mind. So life goes on. You know, he's living every day. I'm sure he has his little stash of things and stuff. You know, he's 5. Keep in mind, he's 5 at this time. And life just goes on. So at this age, Jerry really didn't have a lot of friends. Throughout the whole book, it was said that Jerry was like an awkward little redhead, freckled faced kid that just came off awkward to people. So he didn't really have a lot of people that he hung out with. But at the age of 5, he did have a little girl that he had met that lived in the neighborhood, and she became his best friend. And on top of that, there was a woman separate from the little girl, not non-relative of the little girl, who actually took Jerry in and treated him with the love that he would never get from his mother. So in the book, it describes how Jerry kind of fantasized and saw that woman as his mother. So in this time, unfortunately, in very close proximity of one another, the little girl, the 5-year-old little girl, she unfortunately passed away from tuberculosis. And the woman that Jerry was super close with, she also passed away from diabetes. Because again, you got to remember, this is the 40s. So Jerry, at that moment, lost the 2 female figures in his life that he had ever opened up to or felt close to. And he kind of felt abandoned, you know, because now he was left with no friends and no surrogate mother, basically. And it was said that Jerry mourned deeply the loss of these 2 female figures in his life, and he would never be able to think of one without the other. So this also started like an emotional unstableness with him, with feeling abandoned and feeling, you know, some type of negative emotion towards women, because of course he has Eileen as his mother, who's a piece of shit. So he feels neglect and hatred and things from Eileen, and now he just got abandoned by the 2 females that he actually opened up to. Okay, so fast forward a couple of years. Jerry is now about 7 or 8 years old. The family picks up and moves again to Riverton, California. It was said that during this times that Jerry was a very sickly child, that he suffered a lot with measles, throat issues. He had to have surgery on his hands and his toes. And he was held back into the 2nd grade. And of course, Tom, the golden child, was a straight A student and was prospering and things like that. So this is the household environment and mind frame that Jerry was going through at the ages of 7 or 8. There is a quote from Jerry later on about his sickness. When asked about his sicknesses, he was just said to say that there was something wrong with like his veins. The veins were ballooning, and I had to have operation because they were not doing their jobs, end quote. That is what he has to say about his health issues at the time, because he had to have some surgeries too. And he suffered from very horrible migraines throughout his whole life, to where they gave him like some placebo glasses because they thought maybe he was getting headaches because of his visions, but they were just literally like window glasses. They weren't for actual eyesight. And also they tested him for his IQ and stuff, because again, he did fail the 2nd grade, but it was due to his sicknesses. And he actually tested average to above average on his IQ. So he, academically, there was nothing mentally wrong with him, academically. So this was another pivotal moment at this age, because Jerry had a teacher who took a liking, you know, to all her students, and she treated them all fairly, and she was kind. She was a young teacher, assuming like maybe in her early mid-20s, and she was a single lady. So his teacher would take 2 pairs of high heels with her teaching high heels and her going out high heels, and she would put the extra pair of high heels in her bottom desk drawer. So whenever she had a date or had a girls' night or whatever it was, she would switch out at the end of the day and go on with life. Well, mind you, from the incident from the junkyard, Jerry knew that he is not supposed to express his love for these heels. So Miss Thing was teasing him every day. That poor boy was watching her strut them shoes up and down the desk aisles, and he was just like wanting to get his hands on her shoes. She had style and he loved it, and he wanted those damn shoes. Just ate and ate and ate and ate at him every day. So he concocted a plan, and he's like, the next time I see her put some shoes in that drawer, I'm going for them, because he needs his fix. I mean, they're right freaking there. He can't help himself. So when opportunity arises, sure enough, little first, second grade Jerry goes up to that desk, snatches them shoes, stashes them somewhere until he can get them at the end of the day, and he takes her shoes. So of course, Miss Thing got a date, and she's like, where the hell are my freakum shoes? You know what I'm saying? And so she can't find them. And the next day she brings it up to the class, and she's like, nobody's going to be in trouble. Just let me know if you have my shoes. Like, it's okay. Blah, 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 blah. So Jerry, another thing, Jerry was an honest criminal. And he would be an honest criminal up until the day that he got caught up for his major crimes. That is one thing about Jerry. With his above average IQ, he was going to be honest at the end of the day. Not that he wouldn't try to get out of it at first, but at the end of the day, it didn't take much carousing him to get him to spill the beans on himself. That was another thing about Jerry that I was just like, he was so honest. So many people knew so many things, and yet here we are. I digress. So Jerry eventually is like, yes, miss, I'm the one that took your shoes. I'm sorry. And she's just like looking at him like maybe she was expecting a little girl to have taken them. So to see Jerry there, she kind of gave him a weird look that made him uncomfortable, and he bolted out of the classroom. And then from that moment on, his teacher, it said like maybe she never really saw him the same, and maybe didn't treat him the same that she had before, and Jerry knew it. Jerry felt it. So there again is another woman who he was close to, as close as he can be as her student, who has now maybe turned her back on him. So there's another incident right there that I'm sure just fueled the fire of his ideals of women. Okay, so fast forward now, Jerry is about 10 years old. And Eileen and Henry are having a little kickback with another family friend of theirs who happens to have a teenage daughter who wears little tiny conservative type heels. And they're just partying, living it up. And as it tends to do, like if you've ever, when you're younger, had little parties with your friends and their kids, shit starts getting late. Kids start getting tired, and you just start chunking them in the back rooms while y'all are just chilling, right? Well, the daughter is like tired at some point, and she's like, can I take a nap? And they're like, yeah, you can go lay down in Jerry's bed. Like, that's fine. Go rest over there, We'll let you know when we're leaving. So she's like, okay. So Jerry, who's been eyeing that girl's shoes the whole night, is like, can't contain himself. So he's like, okay, I need to give her time to go to sleep. I need to just play it cool, man, So 10-year-old Jerry, he tiptoes into his room. He sees that the teenage girl is in fact already asleep. So he goes over there with his eyes wide and anticipation, and he starts to try to unbuckle her shoe because his plan is to get it off her foot. But the girl is a light sleeper. So she pops up, and boy, she's pissed. She's like, what the hell are you doing, dude? Get off of me. Quit touching me. Like, you know how teenage girls are. Teenagers, you know what I mean? Especially you have this little bratty little 10-year-old boy. She's not thinking anything sinister, anything weird about it. She's just like, you're annoying me. I'm trying to sleep. Leave me alone. You know what I mean? But she scolds him. And so he gets scared and frozen because now he just got caught. And of course, he knows what he's doing, even though she doesn't. So the guilt in him is like, oh, shit. He takes off, because she caught him doing that. So that was another thing that he felt embarrassed, when it had to do with, like the shoes. That was another incident that happened to him at the age of 10. But this also started like another type of thing in him was the subject of SCX, right? I'm new to YouTube. I don't know what words I can say, so I don't know. But again, Jerry's 10 years old. He's grown up on farms his whole life. So he's seen them do it how they do it on the Discovery Channel, but these are animals. It starts sparking his curiosity about humans and the human body. Like him as a boy, he's like, I mean, I know what I look like. I know boys, but girls are now like a new fascination, which, I mean, when you're hitting, your growth spurts and stuff, that could be deemed normal thinking. Like start getting curious about the opposite and things like that. But this is Jerry BRUDOS we're talking about, so it's not as innocent as it should be. So again, you got to remember that he grew up in a house with Eileen, and she never showed affection. That was a taboo subject. You do not talk about things like that. Everything is hush hush, which I'm sure maybe during these times that's how a lot of households were, were like. Again, you got to remember these are like the 50s, 40s, almost 50s. So he was just like consumed in his mind now about this topic. Like he just wanted to know more, right? So this is now something that is brewing in the back of his mind. So fast forward about a year or two, Jerry's about 11 or 12 now, and the family picks up and moves again. This time they move to a place called Grant Pass, Oregon. And Jerry actually makes himself a little friend, like an actual friend that's another boy that he runs around with and, just doing boy things. And this little boy, he's a little prankster, right? And he has a couple of sisters, teenage sisters. And him and Jerry, again, keep in mind, they're like 11, 12 years old. And he's like, hey, let's go, like, basically bug my sisters. Let's put on their clothes, which included their undergarments, like bras and stuff. Boys being little annoying little brothers, basically. And he's like, let's go do this, Jerry. And so Jerry, he's like, okay, let's do this. Well, unfortunately, that would just add on to his fetishes and fixation and just have a whole nother obsession brewing within him, because when Jerry put on them undergarments and was able to feel them, either the cottonness or the silkiness, whatever it was, this took Jerry to a whole nother level. This was like a whole nother level of something that he had never experienced. And then of course, he's a little boy, he's a preteen boy, and he's thinking like this is the closest that he's ever gotten to the opposite. You know what I mean? Like touching something that they wore. Like these are like his thoughts. You know what I mean? So now this was another thing that Jerry knew he liked. So now he likes high heels, and now he likes girdles, he likes brassieres, he likes chonies, he likes the garter straps. He loves the full package, girl. All of it. He loves it all. So unfortunately, Jerry did not get to keep his little friend very long, because once again, Henry moved the family to another part of Oregon, and this was in 1952. He went back to farming. At this time, Tom would be about 16 years old. Jerry would be around 12-ish, 13 years old, and so he had to leave his friend behind. But he sure did have all the memories that he had with that little boy. And so Tom was said to be an avid artist, and mind you, he's 16. So he likes to draw little comic girls, but they are not wearing anything but a pair of heels. And so just Jerry's luck, he happens to come across this little lunchbox locked up that Tom liked to keep his drawings in, and he finds these drawings, and of course, the way they are, this makes him excited. He's excited. He sees this. He wants to come back every day now and see this. Is there any new drawings? He's loving it. And this is the only image at this point in his life that he has seen of the opposite. So this is something that is now a new adventure for him and that he looks forward to on a daily to get back to. Well, it doesn't take long for the all-seeing Eileen to pop her little head in there and catch Jerry with Tom's drawings. But Jerry did not snitch out his brother. Jerry took the fall and said that they were his. He got in trouble, of course. I mean, he was grounded for hours on end. You know, he got in big trouble for having these, and again was looked at weird by his mother for that. So that is just another instant where something happened that I'm sure added another ingredient for his craziness. So now we're going to jump a little further. Jerry is now about the age of 16 or so, and he has his first like naughty dream, and he dirties his sheets, and his mother comes in like just in the right time to see this, and boy, she loses her shit again on him, calling him every name in the book, looking at him weird, and just in like parentheses, Jerry himself had no idea what the hell happened. He didn't even know what the hell happened. He's like, are we supposed to be able to control this? Like, what the hell is going on? Like, he himself was so confused trying to process it, on top of Eileen berating him and looking at him like a freak and shit like that. So this is another ingredient that was sprinkled into the bowl that created a monster, basically. So Eileen goes, makes him wash his sheets, makes him hang them on the line, and then that night he had to basically sleep on a bare bed with nothing because his sheets were out in the back drying. Which is an important thing to remember, is that these times they were clothesline hanging their things, which is very important because it was also during this time that Jerry started stealing people's clothes off the line, specifically women's underclothes. He started taking them off the line to where he kind of built him a little stash. Okay, like he had all the things and he was loving it. He would sit there and he would fill them, he would rub on them, he would wear them, he would do it all, and he was just living it up, taking everybody's clothes. And so that is also why it's important to remember that fact that people were hanging clothes out there, because that just gave Jerry like a whole inventory. You know what I mean? He could literally see what was out there and take what he wanted. So after he had this incident with the dream and his mother, that was the first time I believe that rage kind of fueled in him for that. I guess the way that Eileen handled the situation and reacted, Jerry took it and turned it into rage. So Jerry started having little fantasies, and he, matter of fact, went out into the yard and started digging tunnels, because he had this fantasy that he wanted to have a girl in his tunnels and have her do whatever he wanted her to do, just basically at his command, But at the same time, he is very wet behind the ears. He is very naive, very immature, and knows nothing of nothing. So he's like, I know I want her there for something, but I don't know what. Like, I wouldn't even know what I would ask her to do. Like, that type of shit. You know what I mean? But this is kind of the first significant sign of where Jerry's mind is now going as he's getting older. And in the book, when they ask Jerry, like when he first started taking all these like chons and brawls and stuff, like what was going through his mind? What was he feeling? And he is quoted as saying, touching them gave him a funny feeling. Touching them gave me a funny feeling, end quote. So yeah. So eventually though, this activity of just snatching things off the line would eventually escalate into Jerry breaking into people's houses, because he just wanted his pick of the litter. He didn't just want anybody's old bra and panties. He wanted to see the person that was wearing them and say, I want those person's clothes. And he escalated like about at the age of 17 into actually breaking in houses and taking them. So this went on while they were staying in that area, but about a year later, when Jerry was 17, the family picked up and moved again to Corvallis, Oregon, where they could be closer to the university where Tom was going to be going. Tom was in college studying electronics with parentheses side note. This is not in the book, but something that I found out. Because Jerry also ended up going down the same path as his brother. And from doing like my little investigating of this case, it's crazy because Tom's kids also followed in his footsteps of being electricians. So that was pretty crazy, in parentheses. So yeah, so of course, here's Tom, the great golden child. He's going to university. He's doing great. He has a very high GPA. He's excelling beautifully in his field. And Jerry decides to take up electronics too. And though he doesn't get the same praise, he is also very, 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 very intelligent when it comes to this. There, later in life, as a grown adult man, he was praised by his coworkers and his bosses about how brilliant he was. He was a brilliant electrician. Like, he knew, for the time, the technology and things. Like, if he would have went right, the places he could have went, dude, he was supposedly like a genius when it came to technology, electrical stuff, like all of that. But of course, it was like, good for you, Jerry. Oh my gosh, Tom, you're wonderful. You're brilliant. Oh my gosh, you're the best. So that's basically what Jerry was going through. You know what I mean? Nobody gave two shits about what he was doing. They're like, is this going to get you out of my house? Like, do whatever you got to do type of shit. So anyways, it was during this time that Jerry was starting, of course, now he's 17. So he's starting to think like the shoes, the undergarments, the thrill of breaking in and getting the undergarments is just not enough. It's like a drug. It's like he needs more. He needs something stronger. He needs something that's going to do something different because he's tired of the same old feeling. It's running out. It's getting old. So Jerry decides that he needs something more. So he gets it in his mind that he's tired of seeing, like, the drawings was the only thing. And he's just like, I need a picture. Like, I need a real life picture of a girl. And that's what he set his sights on. So remember that he's taking all these things from people's houses. And at this time, his neighbors had some teenage daughters. And boldly, Jerry broke in there and took their undergarments. Okay? Jerry broke in and took their stuff, right? Unfortunately, this would be Jerry's first real victim. That it was a 16-year-old girl that lived across the street from him, whom he had took her stuff. So he runs into her and he tells her, hey, I can get your stuff back. And she's like, how? Unless, like, she's confused because her stuff was stolen. She's like, how? And he's like, so I'm actually working for the cops. And she's like, Jerry, be real. And he's like, no. Hear me out. So you know how, like, there's been a bunch of break-ins and people's stuff has been getting stolen? Well, the cops approached me and told me if I want to work with them and be like the inside man, because who's going to expect me, 17-year-old Jerry BRUDOS, who suffers from very bad acne, is very awkward, doesn't have any friends, doesn't have anybody, like, nobody's going to suspect him. So he's like, who's going to suspect me? Nobody, right? The cops are genius. They want me to be the neighborhood lookout and find everything that's going on. And I already know where your stuff is at. So, like, I can get it back for you, girl. Like, no problem. And so, before we judge anybody, let's keep in mind that, one, she's a victim of Jerry's. And two, she's a child. Like, she's a teenager herself. She's very naive. All she knows is that I believe she was working and was spending her own money on these things. And so she wanted them back. And if she's like, if weirdo neighbor Jerry can get them back for me, why not? And he looks harmless because, parentheses, Jerry was said to be not so much welcoming, but just a normal, every average Joe that you see on the street. There was nothing about him that would make you think that he was capable of the things he was capable of. Like I said a minute ago, he was said to suffer from severe acne, very bad acne. So he didn't have very many, like, well, he didn't have any girls that were after him or anything like that. Like, he was just that weird, awkward kid nobody thought twice about, in parentheses. So she's like, okay, let's see what you're talking about, Jerry. And Jerry's like, great. Meet me at my house on said date and said time, and I will have your stuff for you, okay? So this poor girl, she goes to the house at the time, and at the date she's supposed to meet Jerry there. And she goes up to his room and she's waiting for him when she is attacked from the back by a man in disguise that's wielding a knife to her neck, and he tells her to strip, to get down to nothing. And so he takes pictures of this poor girl, and he's just clicking. He takes, like, I think over like 100 pictures. He's just clicking. So when he's done, he bolts out the door, right? This masked man, he bolts out the door. So not shortly after that, Jerry comes running in. He is huffing, he is puffing, he is looking scared, and he's like, oh my gosh, I just got pushed into the barn and locked in there by some man in a mask. Oh my gosh. And he sees that she is in distress. Like, she's already dressed, but like getting dressed, and she's in distress. And he's like, oh my God, what happened? Was it the masked man? And that girl's like, hell nah, dude. Like, she knows it was freaking Jerry, but she is too much in shock, too much traumatized, too much embarrassed, too much all the things, that she just runs past Jerry and bolts it home. And this poor girl never says a word. She doesn't say a thing to anybody. Any other soul has no idea what just happened to this young girl. She is so, again, traumatized and embarrassed that she does not want to speak about this at all. She knew deep down that that was Jerry. She was not dumb. She knew that that was Jerry, but she just was like, let it go. Let it go. You know, as women, sometimes we tend to make mistakes like that and just carry it and bury it. We don't want to make a big deal about things, you know, unfortunately, especially during these times. I'm sure she was just like, it happened. I got to figure a way to move on. It's over. Never trust that boy again. I just got to keep it moving. Okay. So 8 months go by. And Jerry's dumbass is like giggling and is like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I got away with it. Because he was paranoid, as I'm sure people who do crimes, I wouldn't know, do crimes do. I'm sure they get paranoid. I would hope so, that they would have some kind of fucking conscience. And even Jerry, he was paranoid for a little while, wondering if the cops were going to knock on his door, you know, because he just did something really fucking crazy, really wild, and never came. 8 months passed by and he's in the clear. So he is giddy. And he's looking at those pictures every night and every day. He is soaking in them, because when he took them, he didn't really soak in the moment that he did it, because he was like running on adrenaline himself, and he was just clicking. He was telling her to pose, do whatever, and he was clicking. So now that he has them in the privacy of his room and is able to actually see, you know, the work basically of his, he's living in the moment, and he has the clothes that he stole. So he has the picture and he has the clothes, and he is just in a fantasy just became reality to him, basically. So imagine your wildest fantasies becoming reality. That feeling that you think you're going to feel, that's what Jerry was feeling. He was on cloud freaking 9, dude. It was like nobody can tell him nothing. He was not coming down from that cloud for a while. Okay? So this picture, it did it for him for a while, you know? But like all things, it gets boring. You need something different. You need something else. You need a new fix, something a little bit better, something new. And that's where Jerry was. He has now known that he has gotten away with his crime, and he wore those pictures down. They were tattered and worn out, and he needed something new to replace it. So again, Jerry, he's still in high school, and again, he's frumpy, acne, all these things that girls are not peeping game at him like that. They're not hollering at him like that, trying to do anything more than maybe a friend, but even that, because he's a little a little off, a little awkward. He approaches a classmate who was known to walk home after school because, again, at this time, he is an older teenager. He's about 17 and he's already driving. So I don't know if him and Tom shared a car. That's my speculation, but he had a car at this point. And he tells this girl, hey, girl, I can give you a ride. You don't got to walk. And, you know, she's young. Like, put yourself back at that age, especially if you're a girl. Put yourself back at that age. If not all girls, of course, nobody's all the same. But, like, you're walking home every day from school and, like, somebody's that you assume is not going to be an issue. You know him from school and he's offering you a ride and you're like, it's better than this walk. I'll just use this clown for a quick ride, have a quick chit chat. I mean, what's the harm? I'm going to get home sooner. You know, whatever. I'm sure that's what her thinking was because she got in that car with Jerry, which would be her mistake. Unfortunately, it would be her mistake. So Jerry's like excited because he actually got this girl to get in his car. So they take off, they're driving. She, you know, he knows where he's going. He knows where she lives. I'm sure it didn't say, but I'm sure he was already stalking this girl or something. So anyways, he starts heading in the direction to take her home. But then she starts noticing like town is getting farther and farther away from them. She's like, Jerry. And then at this point, parentheses, sorry, she was already getting weary because Jerry was kind of talking like if they were on a date is what it described it as. Like he was being really weird and she was just like, yo, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Like, we're not even friends, but at minimum we would be friends because he was talking kind of like weird. You know what I mean? It was said that he was saying weird things, like trying to make it seem like they were on a date or whatever. So that was the first, you know, inclination that she started getting real uncomfortable because he's like, why is he talking weird like that to me? You know what I mean? But then again, she starts seeing that town is just passing him up and getting farther and farther behind. And she's like, what the hell? You know what I mean? So she's like, you can let me out right here. Well, Jerry snaps. He pulls over, drags her out the car, and beats the out of her, dude. Like, bad. And his whole plan is to get her to where she can't run away so that he can do her like the first one. He has his camera and everything ready. Well, fortunately for her, unfortunately for him, there is a family passing by and they see him in the field and they can just see that something is happening. So the husband, he goes to and is like, what is going on here? Well, he sees this poor girl there and Jerry's like, oh my gosh, you're never gonna believe it. While we were driving, the door opened and she fell out and she's like, she can't talk. She's already swollen. She's just sobbing and she's just like, and he's like, hell no, that's not what happened. And he's like, you're right. Okay, that's not what happened. Actually, I was passing by just like you, and I seen another guy, you know, pounding on her. And she's like, like, that's not what happened. And he's like, you know, he's a grown man with his own little family. He's smart, and he's like, I'm not leaving her here with you. I don't believe shit you're saying. Come on, girl, get in the car. We're taking you straight to the station. So they go down to the station, and this is where Jerry is first ever on the police radar because he's questioned, of course. Initially, he tries to lie. He tries to stick to one of the stories he told the man, but being the above average, honest criminal that Jerry is, he eventually confesses. And he's like, I don't know what came over me. I've never done anything like this before. I just something just came over me that I can't control, that I couldn't control, and I don't know why. Like, I have no explanation for y'all, but yes, I did do this. I just wanted some pictures of her. And they're like, hold on, what'd you say? And he's like, I just wanted some pictures of her or whatever. So they're like, okay, somebody write up a warrant. We need to go, you know, investigate this boy because this is a very violent crime. And so they do. They get a warrant. They search Jerry's stuff, and lo and behold, they find his little stash of chons. They find his pictures. It's all just coming together. And so they end up contacting the neighbor girl because, of course, that's what he had. That was his stash at the time. And so she fully tells them the story of everything that had happened. So after they have all this information and they have Honest Jerry's what's it called, confession and stuff, they decide that being that he is a teenager still, that he just needs help, and they want to help him. They don't want to lock him up and throw away the key because he's just a kid, you know. So they decide to send him to the Oregon State Hospital for evaluation. And he was there, not necessarily like an outpatient status, because he would sleep there and be there, but he was allowed to get out during the day to go to school. Okay. And I believe he stayed there for almost a year, a few months. But there is a quote from one of the psychiatrists that evaluated him from the Ann Roll book, and the quote says, he was told to have said to his psychiatrist that he liked sports, but he didn't like rough competition. He quoted saying, "I don't like to fight or to push people around or to be pushed around, so I don't go out for any teams." He gave his hobbies as working with radios, electronics, mechanics, and photography. He had belonged to the 4-H Boy Scouts and the Farmers Union, end quote. So when they asked Jerry about sex, he immediately seemed embarrassed about it. You know, mind you, he grew up in a very taboo, a home where that was very taboo, unaffectionate. This was a no topic. So he felt embarrassed that he was being asked about anything in that realm. All he added to that was about the dreams that he had, and that these were reoccurring dreams that would happen about every 2 months or so. But other than that, from the psychiatrist's view, I guess he just seemed normalish. He didn't even drink or smoke or do any of the crazy teenage things that teenagers do. So in their opinion, they were like, okay. And then again, you got to remember that academically, he is like above average IQ. So eventually they were like, there's nothing really too serious about him that we feel, you know, that we need to keep him or anything like that. I think we pretty much got the gist of what's going on with Jerry. They said that although he did seem to be a little depressed, that they didn't see any signs of him being suicidal, homicidal, or destructive in any way. Although he did admit that he could have a temper at times. And but again, like, they're like, he's not delusional, he's not hallucinating, he doesn't seem like a real danger. Yes, he did have this incident, but like, from a psychological point, I mean, we feel like he's just a normal boy that maybe just had an episode or something like that. So his diagnosis at the end of it, and this is a quote from the book, his diagnosis was adjustment reaction of adolescence with sexual deviation, fetishism, and borderline schizophrenic reaction. So after being there for over a year, being evaluated and talking to these psychiatrists, they told him that he just needed to grow up. Moment of silence. Let that sink in. He just needed to grow up. Basically, boys will be boys. He just needs to grow up. Like if all teenage boys are beating the shit out of girls and are taking photos and stealing undergarments. Like, I don't understand. I don't understand, but I was also not born back in the day. I don't know. But yeah, he just needs to grow up. So now Jerry is sent home. Of course, Eileen is rolling her eyes and is like, feels up to Eileen. He could leave his ass there for the rest of his life. She can give two shits. So at this time, though, Tom, he is doing very well in college. His dad is still doing farming. It said that his mother was working at a war mill. And Jerry went back to focusing on electronics, and he ended up graduating. And for a little bit, he attended Oregon State University as well before going to a technical vocational school. Yeah, and then at 20 years old, so now here we are. Jerry is in full adulthood. He's 20 years old. he decides on March 9th, 1959, that he is going to join the United States Army. And he was sent to Fort Ford, California, and then to Georgia, where he was doing his basic training. And this was here another missed opportunity. So Jerry, when Jerry was in basic training, he received a rank of E2, and I'm just throwing that out there. I mean, I'm not going nowhere with that. I'm just giving you some information. But at this point in his life, his dreams started to escalate, because he was having dreams that this Korean woman would come into his room and would try to seduce him. And here's a quote again from Anne Rose, the Lust Killer, from Jerry. He said, I didn't want her. He believed that it was a real occurrence. Okay, he's quoted as saying he didn't want her, but they were so real. These dreams were so real to him that he thought that this was really happening to him every night. And he would beat her very badly every night, and that brought him joy. That made him feel powerful. Like, that was something that he liked about her coming into the room, is that he got to beat the shit out of her afterwards, after she tried to seduce him. Yeah. So anyways, then he started getting, like, maybe these aren't real, because the guys, they would never bring it up. And he figured, like, if this was something that was really happening, wouldn't the other soldiers see this happening and address it in some way, form, or another? So he was like, well, maybe this is not really happening. So he confided in his sergeant about this, which sent him to the Army psychiatrist. And when he told her the dreams that he was having, or the psychiatrist, the dreams he was having, they were like, interesting, Jerry. Those are very interesting, very specific, very detailed, very emotional driven dreams that you're having. So yeah. On October 15th, 1959, they gave Jerry the boot. They're like, we don't have no room for dreams here. We don't have that position. We don't need it. You can go. Good. Thank you for trying. Thank you for your service. We appreciate the effort, but your services are no longer needed here. Goodbye. Stamp of approval. Send them out. So Jerry was given the boot. He was no longer in the Army. So of course, he found his way going back to home with Eileen and Henry, where I believe they were in like a 2-bedroom house, and they gave him the room to stay in until Tom, the brother, yes, that was until Tom finished college. Once Tom graduated from university, he was the perfect student, the perfect son. Jerry had to go. She's like, you need to take your ass to the shack in the back, because they had like a back house, like not even a house, like a shack. And they're like, if you wanted somewhere to stay, you can stay there. If not, I don't know what to tell you. But Tom is on his way home, and this is his room now. So you got to go. So Jerry made his way to the back of the shack and made it his little dark home, which at the end of the day, it benefited Jerry, because he was like, I have the most privacy that I've ever had. Like, nobody is going to be able to see what the hell I'm doing in here now. So that was another pivotal moment. And so if Jerry wasn't weird enough, he was quoted as saying that he blacked it all out and that he wanted to keep the light out. He wanted to keep it as dark as possible. And this is where he really started to become a recluse and a loner, if he already wasn't one. Because before, he would try to put himself out there. He would try to make friends and stuff like that. But this point, he just gave up. And he's like, it's me against the world. Me, myself, and I. Solo rider till I die. So, of course, being left to his own devices, his own mind, and having his collection of things that he, was known to collect, his mind started itching again, and he needed to fulfill that scratch. So this would be the first crime that he would commit since being back from the Army. He saw a young woman who he found quite fashionable, and especially of all things, her shoes. So he followed this girl until he found her in a vulnerable spot, and he attacked her. I believe, he choked her until she was unconscious. and he stole her shoes. Thank God that is all that he did. That's all he wanted was her shoes. He wasn't intending to, get rid of her, but he just wanted those shoes. He had to have him, and he didn't see any other way but then to make her unable to, like, stop him from doing that. So, can you imagine? I mean, how lucky would you feel to not have anything else happen? But can you imagine waking up and the only thing gone is your shoes? Like, you have everything, your money, your purse, everything, and the only thing, I'm sorry, it's not funny, but it's like, what the fuck would you think if you woke up and your damn shoes are gone? Like, you can have $1 million in your purse and it's there, and your shoes, of all things, are gone. Like, bro, I don't know. So, anyways, Jerry took her shoes. That was his first victim from the time he came back from the army. And there is also another quote in here about what he felt about that. And it says, back in his shack, he slept with those shoes, remembering the power that he had over the owner. If for only a short time, somehow, this made him feel stronger now when he had to deal with his mother. End quote. So there we go. The mind of the man himself. That is what the shoes did for him. So now, let's jump a couple of years. Jerry is now 23 years old. And at 23, Jerry is a bit successful. He does get his electrician license. He, like I said, he was deemed pretty brilliant in that field. So, he would become an electrician. And it was also during this time that he finally started getting interest in the opposite in a healthy way. Like, he decided, maybe he wants a girlfriend or something. Like, at 23, these thoughts are barely starting to occur to him. And of course, he's never been with a woman. He's never had anything, but now he's curious about it. So, now that he's an electrician, he has a job, he's working, he sees customers every day in and out, and he becomes friends with one of his customers. And he expresses this to this guy. I believe he was a younger boy than Jerry was. I think he was like a few years younger, like 18 or something. And so Jerry tells him, and he's like, yeah, man, now I'm doing my thing, I'm settled, I can really use some company, some companion, like, I want to put myself out there. And the guy's like, you know what? I got this friend. And she's very pretty. She's very attractive. And she's single. I think you two might really hit it off. So Jerry, he gets excited. And this is where Jerry would meet his eventual wife. So in the book, this is one thing that I will tell you the real thing, because it's already out there. So this calls her Darcy, but her real name was Ralphine Schwindler or something like that. But in the book, she's known as Darcy. But, yeah. So Ralphine was 17 years old at the time. She was said to be, a little looker. She wasn't bad on the eyes. And she had very many suitors. She was very outgoing personality. She attracted the opposite with no problem at all. And to be quite honest, Jerry was not her type whatsoever. She would never on a normal day give Jerry the time of day or the second look. Like, it was said that she was not attracted to him, as per most women, in any way, shape, or form. She was, she's young and hip, and she wants a guy that has some swag and shit. And she's looking at Jerry, and he's like a little greaser. He don't take care of himself. He's real frumpy. He's full of acne. And she's like, Rose, bro, why would you suggest this guy to me? You know what I mean? And there is a quote from her in the book about Jerry. She was saying, I probably wouldn't have accepted a date with him at all, except he asked me to go swimming, and I love swimming. And then it continues to say, that's end quote of what Ralphine said about meeting Jerry. And then when describing Jerry, Ralphine would say that he actually was quite funny and had a sense of humor and had confidence about him that she admired, apart from herself. something that she would never be, like the confidence in him, end quote. So that was in the book. So basically, just think about a young girl, you know, she sees this somewhat older man. He's 23. She's a young 17-year-old girl. All she's messed with was young teenage boys. And now, although Jerry is not her type, he's not a looker, he's funny. You know, he won her over with his personality, ironically. And he's an older man. He has his electrician license. So to her, she's feeling very mature about that. Like, she's with this older guy. Like, don't think with your adult brain, okay? You got to think with your teenage brain if you can go back that far. Like, think as a 17-year-old girl with this older guy that you can gossip with and giggle with all your girls and be like, girl, he got money, he got his license, he's an electrician, like, he's gonna take care of me, he can do things for me that these little punks cannot, okay? You gotta give Ralphine some grace. She was a literal child when Jerry scooped her up, all right? Keep that in mind. And on the flip side, it was said that maybe that is why Jerry also was taken with Ralphine, because it had the opposite effect. Jerry, again, was a loser. I'm just going to say it in the eyes of women. And so women his own age or older would look at Jerry and be like, you're kidding me. This is a fucking joke. You know what I mean? So it was kind of like just her wanting an older, successful guy in her eyes, and him finding somebody that's willing to give him the time of day. So that is how these two ended up together. Ralphine's parents were said to be very like traditional and strict, and so they did not like Jerry at all when they found out that their daughter was messing around with him. And so again, Ralphine is a 17-year-old child. She is like, oh my God, like I like at this point, she's already been with Jerry for a while. So she's not like a while. I shouldn't say that because I think it was only been like 3 months or something like that. But in 17 years, that's years already. You know what I'm saying? They might as well have been together 5 years. So Ralphine is like, Jerry, I don't think my parents are going to want us to be together. And Jerry's like, girl, just get you pregnant. We'll get married. They can't do shit about it. And Ralphine's like, brilliant idea. So that's what ends up happening. So in 1962, after only dating a very short period of time, they fast-tracked their relationship and they got married. And there is also a quote of Jerry's perspective of this when he was asked about this time of his life. And quote, Jerry said, I wanted someone to sleep with and she wanted out of her home, end quote. So another thing about Jerry, of course, he was always in Tom's shadow. He even admitted to low-key being scared, like if he didn't hurry up and marry Ralphine, that eventually she was going to meet Tom and think that he was so great like everybody else did and was going to leave Jerry for him. He was scared that Tom was going to Mr. Steal Your Girl on him. So he was also in a hurry to get her married, to basically claim her and own her and be like, it doesn't matter, Tom can't take her away because we are married. So that was another motivation behind Jerry, because Ralphine, she got it going on as far as a 17-year-old can with other teenage boys. You know what I'm saying? So she has teenage boys lined up. That's not a problem. But Jerry, this is the only woman in all his life that has ever given him the time of day in that way. And he is not about to let that slip through his fingers. So yes, they get married. Okay, so in 1962, when they get married, they also have their first child. But before we get to that, I mean, that's just a throw-in. There's nothing really to elaborate on that. But almost immediately, once they got married and moved out and had their own space, Jerry kind of was already allowing Ralphine to see a certain side of him, because he wanted Ralphine and himself to be completely nothing on 24/7 a day. He was like, I want you to cook, clean, anything you got to do in your day. I just want you in heels. That's it. Nothing else. And Ralphine, being the obedient wife she was and young, she was like excited. This was something new. She was like, okay, like I'll do that for you. You're my husband now. Like I'll do whatever you want me to do. You know what I mean? And so that's how things were. Even after, and the kids, I'm gonna just keep the names that they have in the book. They ended up having a daughter, which they called Megan. And when Megan was born, that didn't change nothing in Jerry. He wanted her still to be walking around, doing what they do, blah, blah, blah. And then Megan started becoming a toddler. She started, of course, she's being like 2, 3 years old. And Ralphine is like, Jerry, I can't be doing this because Megan is starting to understand and become older and wiser. And I just don't feel like this is right to be doing. And Jerry is like, I agree. Like, he had no choice. I mean, Ralphine is right. Like, he was like, yeah, you're right. So, but it's like a compromise, basically, because he's like, well, I want you to be my muse. And she's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, I want to start taking pictures of you. And for myself, you know what I mean? So I can have. Because, parentheses, Jerry actually was really obsessed with his wife. Jerry did not need anything else but Ralphine. Ralphine did it for him. Ralphine had him on ice for a very long time because he was in love and obsessed with his wife to where he didn't need to get a fix anywhere else, thankfully, for the time being. So at first, in parentheses, Ralphine was like, I don't know, Jerry, because he supposedly knew how to develop black and white photos, but like color photos, they would have to be sent out and be developed. And she was like, I don't want nobody else to see me. Like, I don't want nobody to see me naked. And he's like, no, like, they only see the first and last photos. So we'll just take bullshit photos for the first and last. And in between will be all you, girl. And you know what I mean? And so Ralphine, being the young, naive, doting, obedient wife that she is, she reluctantly agreed to allow Jerry to photograph her. And so it was on. He had her posing and voguing and doing everything under the sun in all these, like, basically lingerie and, of course, the heels. I believe it said that he had her sitting on their daughter's tricycle, posing on that. He had her, like, just doing the most, right? He was living up his little fantasy. And Ralphine, she didn't like it, but she was like, that's what my husband wants. And she did it. So it was what it was, okay? So a little insight into their marriage. Jerry was kind of like his father. He never could hold a steady job, not because he wasn't good at it, he just never held it down. And they moved about 20 times in like 7 years. They were all over the place, right? So eventually, Ralphine became pregnant again with their son, which we'll call Jason. So with his daughter Megan, he wasn't very affectionate. He wasn't really fatherly for her. And then Ralphine became pregnant with their son Jason, and something in him clicked to where he wanted to be, okay, I think this is my personal opinion. I think that he was like, being that Jason was a boy and we all know how he felt towards women, I think that's why he was the way he was with Megan. But I think with Jason, he wanted to like live vicariously through him and give him the life that he never had, because he became engulfed in fatherhood with Jason, so much so that he wanted to be in the room with Ralphine when she had Jason. Okay? And this would be another pivotal moment in Jerry's life. Because before Jason was born, Jerry was living a normal life. Yeah, he couldn't hold on a job for a while, but then he did. When he was 26 years old in 1965, he held down a job for a very long time doing his little electrical wiring work, and he was praised from his employees and his boss about how great he was. And this was the first time that he had some kind of like normalcy, because he would actually go out on fishing trips. He was living a normal life. He was being social. This was the first time I heard of him actually having a social life. And, he was just being a normal man. People that worked with him during this time, though, would also say, though, that he would not engage in any type of man talk. He would portray himself as the loyal husband, because they, men being men, they would talk about females and make crazy jokes and things like that. And Jerry wasn't having none of that at all. Like, he was like, I'm married. I don't want to talk about things like that. I don't want to be disrespectful to Ralphine. And like, he was a good husband in that sense. Like, he didn't want to engage in any type of man talk, basically, how he was at that time, right? So now let's move back. I'm sorry if I got off the rails there, but let's move back to whenever Jason was born. This will become a pivotal moment in his life because he wanted to be there, and for some reason, which in the book it speculates. Okay, let me just tell y'all. Ralphine didn't want him in there. She said that she didn't want him to see another man playing with her, basically like delivering their baby. And in the book, it speculates the psychology behind that is maybe because she knew that Jerry was like a very jealous husband, and he was very possessive of her because, again, he's very obsessed with Ralphine. So she might have thought that, that's kind of breaking the rules. Like, she didn't want to rub that in Jerry's face because of, how he was with her. So that's just my speculation that maybe that's how she felt. But this is what's going to open up for my part 2, because this is what set the course of all of Jerry's really violent crimes, to where he started escalating his things, because it was the night of Jason's birth, when he was denied access to live in that moment with his wife Ralphine, that he would do his first very gruesome violent crime.